We'll just begin with a quick roll call. Sean Askham, hi.
Here.
Jackie Battos.
Hi.
Hi, Jackie. Wendy Mack. Hi.
Yeah, hi.
I don't believe Mike is able to join. Maria Capriola.
Hello.
Hi. The other Mike is here, Mike Glidden.
Hi.
Hi. Jeff Shea. Good to see you, Jeff. Do we have Tom Taberski?
Hello.
Hi, Tom. Oh, you're on the other screen. I have to keep swiping, I suppose. Tom Fitzgerald, I saw. And Honor Lawler. Hi, Honor. Is there anyone on that I'm missing? Do we have Chris Peterson?
I'm here.
Hi, Chris. Okay.
Hey.
You skipped Karen.
She's not on my list.
She's here. I know. She's making sure
Hi, Karen.
we stay short. We stay legal on this one. You can't forget Karen.
Absolutely. Hi, Karen. All right. Let's call this meeting to order, and we'll begin as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I confirm that we don't have any public audience, although we have one of the youngest residents of Simsbury joining us. This is awesome. We'll move right on to Selectmen action. We just have one item, and that's the submission of an open space and watershed land acquisition grant application. And this, of course, is connected to the acquisition of the Meadowwood parcel, and would be one of the grants that would be necessary in order to acquire the parcel. Before we begin, and I turn it over to Honor and staff to describe what the grant is about, I just wanted to be transparent about why we're meeting now in a special meeting, because I know there's sensitivity around our ability to be open and transparent with the fact that we can't meet in person. So I'm just asking the question, not to throw anybody under the bus, but just so the public fully understands why we're discussing this in a public meeting as opposed to a regular scheduled meeting. And my understanding is it's because of the application deadline for this particular grant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Honor, would it make sense for me to turn over to you or Maria just to give an overview of the grant application?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. And Maria, did you want to say anything first, or do you want me to just dive right in?
I'll just quickly, just add to what Eric was saying, is that our charter just have a requirement about grant applications needing to go before the Board of Selectmen. And we did just have a little bit of a snafu, I think just with the pandemic and some leave issues, that we do have this potential grant application that became available. The application is due to the state agency today. We didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to potentially apply for the funding. The potential grant funding would be over $1 million that we could then use towards the acquisition if we proceed with the acquisition. If for some reason we ultimately decide that for whatever reason we're not going to proceed with the acquisition, we could simply just not accept the grant award. But again, this was just a pretty neat opportunity to potentially secure over $1 million for the acquisition. And I'll just let Honor kind of take over from there.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. And thanks to you all for being so accommodating and taking the time today. I apologize for this last minute. There's a lot going on these days, and this one, just having been back from maternity leave, sort of slipped. Oftentimes when we work with municipalities, our ability to submit applications on behalf of the town is covered under a memorandum of understanding or a technical assistance letter, which we have in this case. But I learned that your town charter actually requires the Board of Selectmen approval, and so I again apologize for the last minute. But
Well, we're glad that we're able to pull it together because this is an important grant application, obviously.
Yeah,
Yes.
I could just historically, Eric, I think you guys were asking about this. This is Sean, just quickly. Oftentimes there's a match component to a grant or otherwise. So I believe that's historically why the Board of Selectmen has been involved. So as my friends like to hear me rant about, nothing is free. So somebody's always paying for this stuff somewhere, and often, we'll have to kick in 20% or 50% or otherwise for grants. I know that's not the case here, but I believe that's the history of why we're involved.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if so this program has been a really important program historically for the Trust for Public Land and towns across Connecticut to be able to acquire open space and leverage municipal funding to get those town dollars to move a lot further than they would otherwise. And so this one we are applying for $1.3 million. That's a big ask, but this is a big deal. And the state is, we've been working hand in hand with them to sort of propel this thing forward. And so technically you can apply for up to 65% of the fair market value. We don't know what that is yet because the appraisal is still underway. And the Deep Open Space Grant Program has said that appraisals, they've extended the deadline for appraisals until August 1st. And so we should be able to sort of amend our application with regard to the funding scenario post, appraisal submissions. And so anyway, the grant application is long. It's about 19 pages of just narrative and another 20 some pages of addendums and maps and, that are an affidavit of our purchase and sale contract with the landowner, just a lot of supplemental information. It's a lot of things to pull together, but this is, like Maria said, a really important opportunity. And like Eric said, to be able to capitalize on this state funding opportunity for open space. And so this grant would go towards the 140 acre open space component of the larger 288 acre purchase. And there's a small area excluded from that, which is the barns on Firetown Road, which the state is not really, they really prefer not to have structures within their conservation easement area. It just provides a little bit of an administrative headache for them. And so our appraisal is for about 140 acres, excluding those barns. And the rest of that 140 acre piece that's on the maps that you guys have seen would be subject to the conservation easement. That's sort of the overview. Is there more, Maria, did you want to get into details or anything like that, or?
No, I think that's a really good overview. And perhaps we could just open it up to any questions the selectmen might have.
Great. Yeah. Happy to.
Great. Thank you.
Hey,
Jackie.
It's
Sorry, Chris. Jackie was raising her hand nicely.
Sorry.
I'm raising my hand. You just can't see it. Okay. I'm walking down Hot Meadow Street with my hand raised.
Could either Eric or Maria, just for the public, again, this is a last minute meeting. Could you let everybody know more about Meadowood and that this meeting is specifically just for grant? We have not made a decision, but maybe you guys could speak to that a little bit.
Great. Maria, I mean, I'm glad to jump in. So there are several grants that would be required in order for us to pay the $2.2 million that we've been talking about up to this point for the larger 288 acre project. The only thing the motion would be doing today would be allowing the town to apply for this grant. It doesn't require us to even accept the grant if the grant is granted. Maria, anything else you would want to add?
Well, thanks, Eric. I think that's a great overview. Part of the funding that we had presented previously in open session included a number of potential grant opportunities for us. So there may be additional grant applications that we would bring back to the Board of Selectmen that, again, would be potential funding sources for the acquisition. And again, ultimately, if things don't proceed in that direction, we can always say no thank you to a grant award that has been awarded to us. But certainly if we do proceed and we are awarded the funds, that just makes it a much more affordable purchase for the town.
So just to clarify, no decision has been made on Meadowwood.
That's my understanding.
I think
Yes.
it to be very clear.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Okay. Thanks.
Chris, do you have a question?
I do have a question, but I'm surprised to hear. It's not. I've heard probably Jackie's framing is because she's been approached by people, but I think that we've been fairly clear to say that we are far from a purchase. We're walking through the very lengthy due diligence process, which would then ultimately end up with a package presentation made to us and then the town to help them understand the financials and the value and whether or not at that point we would want to proceed to purchase. So it's a little shocking to think that. I apologize, Jackie, if you're getting flack from people thinking that we're so far down the road. But anyways, nonetheless, I just want to be clear because, of course, the public that hasn't probably seen the packages, but assuming that the financial modeling is unchanged since we first looked at this, I want to be clear that obtaining this grant does not reduce, again, same financial modeling, that obtaining this grant does not reduce the potential purchase outlay from the town from 2.2 to 1.1. That's correct. Is that correct? It just solidifies the 2.2, assuming all the financial modeling holds. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
Okay. And the inability for us to act quickly or properly and get this type of grant in, if we did not successfully have this grant presented, it could therefore increase the purchase layout by the town to essentially 3.3. Is that correct?
Anna, did you want to jump in? I saw you raising your hand.
Well, yeah, so when we put together the funding stack or the funding model and our proposed grants and, we lay it out to the best of our ability with, as there's a lot of speculation as to how much we'll get and where the money will come from. Our job is to put it all together, but what we try and do is get the best deal we can for the communities we're working for, and leverage as many public dollars as possible, within our right and within, what's appropriate. And so in the event that, we got a full 1.3 million from the Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Program, and we got more than we forecasted from the Highlands Grant Program, then, potentially the town would have to put in less. That's not to say that, one or two others might come in less than we anticipated. And so, it's sort of,
yeah.
It
I
works.
understand that. That's what I just want to make sure that the people understood that all of these are assumptions based upon just the very inflexive numbers we've already been shown. Again, as I said, it's modeling. It's just simply modeling at this point. So I want people to get comfortable with the fact that doing this doesn't lessen our potential outlay. All other inputs assumed to be the same, but certainly not successfully acting upon this now in a timely fashion could significantly increase the purchase model that we have to consider X number of weeks, months, years from now. So that's what I just want to make sure that people understand why we're pushing this forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, that's correct.
Sean, did you want to jump in on that point?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so Chris, you're bringing up a great point. And for the folks that have lived in town for more than 8 minutes, this shouldn't be new. This is exactly similar to how we did Ethel Walker, I believe, where we paid over $11 million in totality for that. And there were 3, I believe, opportunities to vote via referendum for that project, one of which was my first year on the Board of Selectmen, where we had to approve phase 3. There was multiple phases of grants. We didn't actually get the last state grant, I believe, until that 3rd phase. So the point of me raising that is folks that are throwing flags or saying this is unorthodox or anything else have short memories on this is exactly similar to how we did the Ethel Walker acquisition, how we did the Toll Meadow Woodlot acquisition, which took years. The town didn't actually take lead on that, but we had a role in it. And typically how basically any land deal works, because as Honor said and Maria have said, there's so many agencies, et cetera, involved. It's a multi-year, many approval process. And again, there will be ample opportunity to exit the deal. Sorry for the music. There will be ample opportunity to exit the deal if the taxpayers choose not to go forward with it. They will get a say. This will be on the referendum at some point, given the amount. So much like the phantom lack of transparency we had a couple weeks ago, I throw the flag that this is a very standard and normal process, and anybody that's been in town for 5 minutes knows that. So,
okay, thanks, John. Wendy?
The only question I have was in skimming through the attached, there was a lot of references to deep in there. And I was just wondering, does the state of Connecticut have any rights or ownership or say over this land? I mean, you have to fill out a lot of that for the grant to say you're going to meet those standards. But is there anything where they could, oversee anything that happens on this land? And just saying that in sensitivity to other activities by deep in the state in Simsbury.
I can answer that if that's okay.
Yeah, please, Honor. Thanks.
Yeah, this for you.
So sorry, clarifying. But the way the state program works is when a municipality applies to the program for an in-fee purchase, and so the town of Simsbury, theoretically, if we get to that point, would be the buyer of the Meadowood property. And the open space award would go to the town of Simsbury for the fee purchase. And so in return for those funds that can fund up to 65% of that fee purchase, they are granted by the town post-closing a conservation easement on the property that's within the easement area, so 140 acres in this case. And there are several rights and restrictions that the state holds. So the town has to ensure public access. The town has to ensure that the natural resource values are protected and that the land stays, for the most part, in its sort of natural state. So this is not a program for athletic fields. It's not a program for, a commercial timberland. This is for, open space, and they want it to stay as sort of, quote unquote, wild and natural. They will allow you to manage invasive species. They want you to put in trails. And so they do have, in some ways, a say. They don't have an active monitoring component where they come out and they tell you, hey, you need to cut down, these hazard trees. That's up to the town. They're the fee owners of the land. But what the state does say is you cannot pave it. You cannot, deforest it to the extent that it disturbs the natural resources, and so on and so forth. Does that answer?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if Deep had any rights to do any of that on the land, but if it's all under the town of Simsbury, once it becomes ours, that's really what I'm just trying to clarify.
Yes, that's correct. If they feel that you are not meeting the criteria of the grant award and the conservation easement, then there would have to be some mediation or something like that to resolve those compliance issues. And so, if you had received award and had specified that you were going to provide trails and public access, and you never did that, they will, they will ask you to do that. They're not a heavy-handed regulatory agency in this program, but they do want to see these contracts honored and benefiting the public and not yeah.
Okay, that I feel better. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Eric,
Thanks,
Wendy,
Sean.
that's a great question, Wendy, and I believe Maria and Eric we have the same easement on a portion of the Ethel Walker property. So again, that's why we had to, again, we can't have like mountain biking improvements in there, right? And we have to make sure that it has access, et cetera. So
Okay.
great point to get that understood. Thank you.
One question that I had was on the question of environmental contamination. In the grant application, it says no. And I'm asking the question is because this is a question I get asked frequently from members of the public about what we know about this property and what due diligence we need to do before we acquire it. Is that something you can talk to?
Yeah, so it's my understanding at this point that the contamination was pretty strictly confined to the farmland component, which is not included in this portion. There were, Griffin has provided the closure reports, and essentially it says that those are the areas that were contaminated. They have been taken care of. I believe the town is working to sort of do an environmental review, but the state is well aware of those issues on the other side of the property, and it's my understanding that there are none on this side of the property.
Yeah, I think that's an important clarification, is that this particular grant only applies to a specific part of the property. Okay.
Right.
Any other questions before we move forward?
Eric, you do bring up a great point on the environmental pollution issues. I mean, that was originally why this development was declined or turned down, I believe, from the original zoning decision 15 years ago, whatever it was. I believe had something to do with the environmental component. We ultimately obviously went to court over this piece of property, and there was a settlement, correct, Mike? There was a court-ordered settlement where the developer had to remediate the pollution. Simsbury had to acquire a piece affectionately known as the Triangle for, I believe, $3 million.
3.5.
Right. So so everybody should remember, we bought the Triangle for 3.5, and this is substantially larger than said Triangle. Just there's a lot of history and a lot of everything. So I get that folks have a lot of memories on this project as well. But if folks will remember, when the land was all disturbed off of across from Sherry Street there, down the road from Squadron Line, that was when the developer was remediating and taking out the dirt, if I remember correctly. And Mike, your office, I know you weren't in the role that you are now, but your office at the time, I believe, was part of that, and there was monitoring, et cetera, from the town side, right?
Yeah, I actually went out. That was in 2014. I was with the town then, and I actually was out there on site half of the excavation project, because that was a significant amount of material that was removed from the field that was referred to as Hoskins 7. Yeah. And the complaints were dust, et cetera, truck traffic. That's what you were receiving. But that was all pursuant to the court settlement, right, and was completed.
Thank you. And again, sorry for the history lesson. I know it's not germane to what Honor wants us to approve today, but because this is all tied in together, it is important to bring up. So, Eric, I promise I'll be quiet now.
You're fine. Any other questions before we move forward? Okay, I've got the motion here. Is there a motion effective July 1st, 2020 to submit the fiscal year 2020-2021 OSWA application and authorize Maria Capriola, town manager, to execute the grant application?
So moved.
Done. Jackie. Oh.
No, Jackie waved. That's
No,
fine.
She seconded it on mute, but I could see her lips moving.
Second.
All right. Is there any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm glad we were able to pull this together. Honor, excellent job on the grant. Very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you guys for yeah, the last minute. And Maria, I am so sorry, and thank you so much for working with me. Won't happen again. Hopefully, I'll get back into the swing of things. It's mom brain, I guess. I'm just gonna blame it on that.
Don't even worry, my friend. It's okay.
All right, take care, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Everyone's
Is there a
working.
motion to
sorry.
adjourn?
Oh, yeah, motion to adjourn.
Oh, Maria's got.
Sorry, I just want to make sure. I'm so sorry. I was having IT issues right at the start of this. So unfortunately, I'm on my phone and my packet is not handy. And I just wanted to double check. There was an accompanying resolution with the grant application. And again, just because I don't have my packet in front of me because of the technology issues, was it two separate motions in the packet to both approve the grant application and then to adopt the resolution, or was the motion one and the same? I'm sorry, I just don't have it right in front of me.
There's just one motion, which is just to authorize you to do the grant application.
And would you guys mind just also doing a resolution just to cover our bases, to say that we're also authorizing the attached resolution that Erica would sign?
What is that?
I mean, the packet says if this grant is awarded, I'll bring it back to the Board of Selectmen for final authorization due to the items still needing to fall into place.
Right. So there was a packet attachment, or there should have been, which is that the as part of the grant application, they were looking from a resolution from the town clerk certifying that you okayed us to submit the grant application. So there should have been a one-page resolution, again, just that will accompany the grant application saying that you guys authorized us to do that, and Erica, as our town clerk, was certified that. So just wanted to make sure that, again, just to be on the extra safe side, that we were also approving the resolution to accompany the grant application.
Okay,
I'll make it easy on you. I move that we approve the resolution that accompanied the grant application.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sean moved that. I'll second it. Is there any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Is there now? Sure. Now, is there a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second.
All
Second.
in favor?
Move.
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Good to
Thanks,
see
guys.
everyone. Thank you.
Good to see everyone.